Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Tattoo Censorship. At my workplace, a lot of my co-workers have visible tattoos, and it's never been an issue. Even some of the assistant managers and higher-ups have tattoos that are visible while in uniform. During the summer months, we are allowed to wear shorts if we want. I don't handle heat well, so from May to August, I wear shorts almost every day. I have a tattoo of a mermaid on the side of my lower leg. It's done in a classic American traditional style, and like most mermaids in that style, she has a seashell-free top. The design is simple and small, not overly detailed or exaggerated. Plus, it's surrounded by other tattoos, so it doesn't really stand out. For a few weeks, there was no issue. In fact, one of my managers even complimented the artwork. Then, one day, an assistant manager approached me and said my tattoo was suddenly inappropriate for work. She told me I need to either wear pants or completely cover the mermaid's chest every day. I asked if a customer had complained or if our manager had said something. She said no, it was just her personal opinion, and she insisted I cover it. I talked to several co-workers, and they all thought she was overreacting. Even other assistant managers had clashed with her before, because she tended to push her way through any situation. But since she was technically my superior, I decided to follow the rule, just in my own way. If the mermaid needed coverage, then I was going to make it fun. I went to a few craft stores and found as many sea-themed stickers as I could. Shells, fish, waves. I also bought some tiny gemstone stickers and thread. With those I made little decorative tassels for the mermaid. They were colorful, playful, and definitely noticeable. Co-workers and even customers started commenting on how creative and fun it was. The assistant manager, who had made the rule, wasn't thrilled. She had assumed I'd just use a bandage or something plain. But when I asked her directly, she had to admit that I was following the rule. The mermaid's chest was covered. Since I had to keep it covered, I kept getting more creative. Some days I used flashy stickers. Other days I went with bright colors. At one point, I even used googly eyes. My coworkers loved it and agreed the rule had been unnecessary in the first place. Eventually, that assistant manager was let go. After she left, I stopped covering the tattoo, and none of the other managers ever mentioned it. So in the end, the issue resolved itself, and at least I got to have some fun along the way. The next story is called Presentation Gone Wrong. In high school, we had student teachers shadowing the English department. They acted as assistants to the teacher, while getting the experience they needed for their degrees. My English teacher liked to assign topics she thought would interest us, focusing more on developing our writing skills than the subject itself. She rarely commented on the topic choice, but would provide detailed feedback to help improve our writing. Some of us took these assignments seriously, while most of the class just did the bare minimum to meet the word count. And then there was Roy. Roy did not feel like homework at all in any class. He felt that just being at school was enough, and the idea of taking work home was completely unreasonable to him. He was convinced that English was an unnecessary subject and barely put in any effort. Most of his teachers let it slide, because getting him to do anything wasn't worth the struggle. When it became clear that Roy wasn't going to do any work in this class either, our English teacher saw an opportunity for the student teacher to learn something about classroom management. Together they came up with a plan. Instead of getting detention for missing assignments, Roy would stay after school and complete his work under the student teacher's supervision. At least that was the idea. What actually happened was that the student teacher ended up doing most of Roy's assignments, while Roy handed them in and took the credit. This went on for months, with Roy getting surprisingly high marks. Then, one day, the student teacher realized what was happening. and decided enough was enough. She insisted that Roy do his own work. Around the same time, we were assigned a big project. A presentation that would be shown to all 3-year level English classes. It was a major part of our final grade, and we had plenty of time to work on it over break. When we returned, the schedule was posted. Roy's presentation was set for the end of the week. The student teacher, still hopeful, offered to help him fine-tune his delivery. That's when she discovered, unsurprisingly to the rest of us, that he had done absolutely nothing. She was furious. She told him he had to put something together, because the assignment was worth a huge percentage of his final grade. Roy, completely unbothered, told her to write it herself, then walked off to hang out at the bike sheds. So she did. By the end of the week, Roy was feeling pretty confident. After all, every other assignment he had turned in had received excellent marks. He stepped up to present his topic, superhero fiction. The presentation was graded on multiple criteria, including visual aids, presentation skills, and vocabulary. He started strong, using a lot of big words and complicated phrasing. So much so that the student teacher had even spelled things out phonetically in his notes, to make sure he could pronounce them correctly. Our English teacher's eyes kept getting wider and wider. And then we got to the visual aids. The superheroes in question, the Powerpuff Girls. We received a full breakdown of their origin story, details about their powers, and even some speculation on what they might be like as adults. But the real highlight? The illustrations. Let's just say they weren't your standard superhero drawings. They weren't exactly inappropriate, but they definitely weren't what you'd expect to see in an academic presentation. And considering this was the late 90s, meaning the student teacher couldn't just pull images from a quick internet search, she had to put some serious effort into finding them. Naturally, the entire class was very impressed, with Roy's deep interest in these particular superheroes, and we made sure to remind him of it regularly for the rest of high school. The last story is called Working Smart. When I finished culinary school, I got hired as a line cook at a big hotel chain. My job was handling the day-to-day kitchen work, alongside 8 other line cooks and a head chef. Our head chef, however, was more of an office guy than a kitchen presence. He handled all the paperwork, ordering supplies, managing schedules, dealing with HR, making the menus, while we did the cooking. He often bragged about how much work he had, calling it the paper monster. For the most part, the job was decent, but the menus were very outdated. Think old school, uninspiring dishes that felt like they came straight from a decades-old cookbook. Eventually, our kitchen team had enough and asked if we could create new menus ourselves. Surprisingly, the head chef agreed. Then corporate made a baffling decision. The hotel had an after-hours menu with simple, quick meals. BLTs, pizza, salads, soup, fries and burgers. But for some reason, corporate decided to remove it and replace it with our full daytime menu. This led to a major problem. Almost no one was ordering food on the night shift anymore. Turns out when people arrive at a hotel late at night, they are either too tired, not in the mood for a full meal, or just looking for something quick, not a plated dish. This went on for a year. Night shift food sales plummeted across all locations. So corporate made the only logical decision: fire all the night shift cooks or relocate them to other hotels. But instead of bringing back the after-hours menu, they just had someone else pick up the shift. And that's where things really started. I had been working there for about 2 years, when I ran into some issues with the head chef. We didn't see eye to eye, and as a result, I suddenly found myself scheduled for almost every night shift. I'd clock in at 4 PM and leave around 5 AM. On paper, I was working 40 hours a week, but in reality it was closer to 50. I didn't mind too much. Overtime pay was good, and at 21, the extra cash was great. But the shifts were so boring. At first I kept busy by deep cleaning the kitchen, checking the walk-ins for expired goods, setting up part of the breakfast service, and doing some minor paperwork. But within a few weeks, I had run out of things to do. What used to take an hour now took 10 to 15 minutes. So I did the logical thing. I found ways to pass the time. I started reading books, watching Netflix, chatting with the night manager, experimenting with new recipes, and hanging out with the interns. Basically, I was finding ways to stay occupied. Then one day, I got called into the GM's office. He gave me a verbal warning for slacking. When I asked why, he told me someone had reported what I was doing on the night shift. So I explained my situation. I wanted to work, but I had barely anything to do. This sparked a whole discussion between corporate, the GM, and my union about what my job actually entailed. At the end of all this, I was suddenly assigned kitchen paperwork. The head chef, looking very pleased with himself, dumped his entire workload on me, saying it was time to get to work. He assumed I'd struggle or come begging for help, but he underestimated how well I knew my way around a computer. I was now responsible for timesheets, ordering supplies, and answering emails. Tasks the head chef always bragged took him an entire week to complete. But after a quick look, I realized he had no idea how to use the software properly. Within a month, I had everything streamlined. I linked our time management system to payroll, so all I had to do was check if breaks were logged correctly, hit sync, and send a request for approval. Ordering supplies became much easier. I uploaded a produce list and placed orders directly from an iPad, while walking through the walk-ins and freezers. I even combined this with my regular inventory checks. I found out the scheduling system allowed me to copy work schedules from week to week and sync with the HR app, which automatically flagged when someone was on leave. By the time I had all of this figured out, the entire process took me 2 night shifts per week. For the other 3, I was back to having time to spare. And here's where things took a turn. With everything running efficiently, the head chef suddenly had nothing to do in his office. He went from being too busy to sitting around all day. And after 2 months, someone, definitely not me, tipped off the GM. The head chef was forced back into the kitchen. His comfy 9 to 5 schedule was gone. He was now working breakfast shifts. And since he hadn't done line cook work in years, it quickly became obvious he was stuck in an outdated cooking style. Then corporate heard about what I had done with the kitchen's workflow and requested documentation on the process. Suddenly the real question became if the hotel even needed a head chef anymore. By the time I left for another job, corporate was considering cutting the position entirely and making another manager responsible for the kitchen. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.